We're joined now at the GBH Manchester desk by Marianne Williamson, challenging Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination for president. She's a best-selling, you know this, self-help author, and much more. Marianne Williamson, it's great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. So you've done this once before.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it again? It's not easy to be out here.
No, it's not easy, but I tell you, the things that I talked about 4 years ago are even more urgent today. And somebody's got to talk about those things and present to the American people the option of an economic U-turn. We need to turn the page, begin a new chapter of American history that is not dominated by the corruption that dominates our politics today.
You know, but Marianne Williamson, I was looking up some of the issues that you care deeply about, from universal health care to eliminating student debt. You said you're a strong supporter of the labor movement. Do you know who else supports universal health care and wants to eliminate student debt and is a strong supporter of the labor movement?
Oh, are you going to say it's Joe Biden?
I'm not going to say. I am saying.
Okay,
it's Joe
good
Biden. So what's wrong with Joe Biden?
Joe Biden has said that he, first of all, this business about what you just said about universal health care, he says that he would veto a Medicare for all bill. So we have now 75 million underinsured or uninsured Americans. We have 1 in 4 Americans living with medical debt. We have 18 million Americans who cannot afford to pay for the prescriptions that their doctors give them. We have 1.3 million Americans who are rationing their insulin, and 68,000 Americans who die every year from lack of health care. So to tell me that Joe Biden, he wants to give, it's time to do something, and that's called Medicare for All, which he said
How
that
do
he
you
would
get that
veto.
through this dysfunctional Congress?
Well, listen, I don't care if it's Joe Biden or me or Nikki Haley or anyone else. You're going to hope that you have a Congress who would go with you. Now, when it comes to Build Back Better, obviously he had a problem with his own party in terms of Manchin and Sinema. I would have had sharper elbows with those two, by the way. But in terms of Medicare for All, the president has always said he would veto it anyway. In terms of the cancellation of the college loan debt, there are those who would argue that he could just use the Higher Education Act and eliminate the whole thing right now. So I know that's the narrative, oh, poor baby, he tried. That's what they did with Obama all the time. That's what they did with Biden all the time. Democrats need to get our spine back and stop kowtowing to the forces that would make these issues so difficult to solve.
Of course, Marianne Williamson, we have a guy that's running again for president on the Republican side, of course, Donald Trump, who was not a politician when he came into office. Lots of people criticized Barack Obama for not knowing well enough how Washington works, and you've not been there. So why should people think that you could do what Joe Biden, who didn't get everything, but he got a lot more than a lot of other people, and has been a politician his whole life?
We have plenty of political car mechanics. That's not the problem. The problem is we're on the wrong road. The issue is that not that we need another political technocrat. We need a vision and we need a visionary. And I'm not saying I'm the greatest visionary in America, but I am the only one who's running for the Democratic nomination for president. Now, Donald Trump, who you just mentioned, he was not a politician either. Listen, he was a very effective president, in my mind and in the mind of any Democrat, in the worst possible ways. But this did not have to do with the fact that he lacked political experience. He lacks character. He lacks integrity. He lacks respect for the traditions of American democracy. If we want to beat Donald Trump, I would argue that the last thing we need is a status quo politician. I'm a kind of homeopathic remedy. I've got the same kind of energetic going on that he does. That's why I'm the one to take him on.
Well, you know him, by the way, in your former life?
No, I saw him once at a party where he walked by, with Melania, but I never knew him.
Okay.
So you're well known. You've written a million books. You're a self-help guru, a spiritual guru. Everybody knows you're associated with.
This self-help thing, excuse me.
Okay.
You gotta stop right here.
Okay.
This year, all of a sudden, I'm a self-help author.
You're
This
not?
is just this is a PR concocted narrative to diminish me further. Self-help.
Okay.
Not that I lack respect for people who write self-help books, but nobody who has read my
So
book
what are
says
you?
it.
I'm the one who just
an
described you
author.
as a self-help
That's
person.
because they've said that to you so many times. You've read it so many
So I've
places.
given into it?
Thank you.
Okay.
But
Talking
you
to
have-
Marianne Williamson, who is not a self-help author, despite what you may think.
I'm an inspirational author, and I wrote very serious political books, by the way. Politics of Love, Healing the Soul of America. No one who has read my books describes them in those diminishing and derogatory ways.
But you do talk about our sense of hopelessness, which I think is there's no doubt about. There's a lot of hopelessness, I think, on both sides. People on the left and people on the right are worried about the end of the country. And you talk about hope can change things, but it has to be an internal sort of mechanism?
Well,
elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, what Martin Luther King said was that we need external changes in our circumstances and internal changes in our souls. You know, where the Biden administration sees economic data, I see human despair. We need to address what's going on inside people. And when you talk about what's going on inside people, people's lives are falling apart in this country. 39% of Americans are skipping meals in order to pay their rent. And these people are out on television talking about how the economy is doing well, because it's doing well for their club of 20% of us. So when you talk about the mental health crisis, everybody's talking about it on the level of the symptom. We cannot overstate how much of that mental health crisis is rooted in severe and chronic economic anxiety. If you live month after month, year after year, with these invisible shackles of economic constriction, 70% of Americans say that they live with chronic economic stress.
But you know what one of the issues is? That, I mean, at the federal level, you know, Barack Obama had Obamacare. All these states, a lot of these southern states mostly, refused to expand Medicaid. They could have done it with federal money right then. You're dealing with a big problem with the states. The federal government can't force that upon you if the states are going to reject it.
I'm certainly not excusing the Republicans here, but what I am talking about is what the Democrats could have done to forestall this. When he ran for president, when he was campaigning, President Obama said he wanted universal. He wanted a universal. Once he got in there, apparently, health insurance companies or someone said, we'll let you go this far and no further. All of a sudden, he wouldn't even, I remember how in the 2010 midterms, he told people who were running, I will not even campaign for you if you even discuss the public option.
So, Marianne Williamson, I want to get back to what you said a minute ago. You're talking about people skipping meals, living with despair, and you have to get inside people. I, sadly, have never skipped a meal. I know a lot of people do, but I do have. We spent a lot of time despairing on this radio show about the state of the world, the state of this country, the state of the Republican Party that loves Donald Trump. I think we're bigger fans of Joe Biden than you may be. How do you get to that? I mean this sincerely. How do you get to the inside of people to replace that despair with some level of hope?
That's my point. Donald Trump, and this is why you need somebody to take him on the level of what he's really doing, which is not traditional politics, it's psychology. So he pulls people down. He's very clever and very strong at pulling people down. We need a pro at lifting people up. That's my point. It's nothing personal against President Biden. It's this incremental approach. This traditional politics will not beat this man.
Yeah, but what does it mean? You know, that rhetoric, with all due respect,
okay,
of lifting people up. What does that mean? How do you lift people
universal.
up?
It means Medicare for all. It means tuition-free college, which we had in this country until the 1970s. It means It means subsidized child care. It means universal paid family leave. It means a guaranteed living wage. It means guaranteed sick pay. It means a domestic Marshall Plan of 10 to 12 million social units with which to address the housing emergency. We're living at a time where we have to offer people more. This is what Franklin Roosevelt said. He said we wouldn't have to worry about a hostile takeover by fascism as long as democracy delivered on its promises. The Democratic Party has to look in the mirror about all the ways we have not delivered on the promises of democracy that are afforded to the citizens of every other advanced democracy. Not only is universal health care and tuition-free college, for instance, given to the citizens of every other advanced democracy, the majority of Republicans as well as Democrats want it. Not as big a majority, but this is the way to win. This is what Americans want.
Okay, so I'm going to aggravate you for a second. I'm not going to aggravate you by calling you a self-help, whatever you are.
No, I didn't aggravate me. I just
you're not. I've learned that
you.
already. No, I want to talk about every one of the ideas you're mentioning, I'm assuming, is supported by maybe 98% of our listeners. Okay, wait. But 99% of those things, other than, for example, the higher ed debt issue, which you believe could be done by the president by executive order.
No, not executive order, Higher Education Act.
Without having to go through Congress. Is that correct?
That's what many people argue. You could at least try.
Take that out for a minute. All the rest deserves Congress. This president, who I think has been pretty successful by narrow margins, getting pretty important legislation passed, this Congress would not even extend that child tax credit, which was proven to be wildly successful. What were the numbers? It lifted 50% of kids out of poverty in 1 year, and they wouldn't even renew that. So as a realistic matter, why do you think, even if all of your ideas are the right ones, why do you think that any of them become law that require congressional approval?
Okay, so who do you think stood in the way of that? Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
If I were president, I would have been on Air Force One the next day on my way to West Virginia.
Doing what?
I would have talked about it. I would not let these things go. I would have the sharp elbows of a Lyndon Johnson and not the nice traditional, I respect you for our differences of Joe Biden. And, you know, this is not a personal attack on Joe Biden. It's simply talking about a kind of politics that is inadequate to this moment and definitely inadequate to the moment of trying to beat Donald Trump.
But you know what's fascinating and stymieing to many people is that the things you talked about that people would like, better health care. Americans want some gun control. A lot of Americans are in favor of
The
climate
majority
change.
of Republicans as well as Democrats, yes.
People are
Majority of
more,
members of the NRA
more
also
pro-choice
support.
than they are pro-life or anti-abortion as opposed to pro-abortion. A lot of people want help with child care. But you had thousands of people out in the street in teen weather waiting to see Donald Trump. You had, 75 million people who voted for him before. So obviously people either are voting against their self-interest or they're just what?
Okay, this is the deal. The risk for us as Democrats in 2024 is not Donald Trump. Enough about Donald Trump. People who love Donald Trump are going to vote for Donald Trump. We could indict him 91 more times. They are going to vote for him even if he's in prison. The danger for us is people staying home. The danger for us is people who are not inspired by someone who says, let's continue with what's happening now, because they're drowning. We need to inspire people and motivate people. Get up, come on, we're going to give you something. We're going to give you the opportunity to make your lives better. That's how we're going to win. That's the danger here. People saying, I've had it. I've had it with a president who said he's the climate president while he's given more oil drilling permits even than Trump did, and so forth.
So Marianne Williamson, there's a great headline, I think it was in The Nation, a profile of you where someone followed you, and I think the headline includes a supporter saying Marianne or death or some such thing.
Even I think that's a little
Well,
far.
that's pretty great if you're a candidate, I would say. But what's the end game? I don't mean this disrespectfully. I mean, the likelihood is fairly good. I assume you'd agree you're not going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party. But so what's the goal? Is it to move the ball forward so people understand their options better in the future? What is the end game
You know,
here?
I don't want people to say, oh, she played the woman card. But would you have said that to Vivek Ramaswamy?
I would, if we would never interview Vivek Ramaswamy, but if we did,
Okay, yes.
of course we would
Okay,
say it
all
to
right.
him.
So what's the end game?
We said it to Dean Phillips. I
Okay,
mean, we don't have any problem with
Okay,
that.
first of all, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. Granite Staters are famous for keeping it close to their chest. A lot of them still haven't decided and are thinking about it right now. That's number one. Number two, what I can control versus what I cannot control. I cannot control how people vote. I cannot control how the media elite sees me. Not you. I think you guys are nice.
That's right.
I can control. No, I mean it. He's been very nice to me, actually. We've done this before. What I can control is that people have the option of a presidential candidate who's not staying on that shallow level where people are expected to think like sixth graders. I am talking about the fact that we have had a war on the middle class for 50 years. I'm talking about the fact that during the 1970s, the average American family could afford a house, could afford a car, could afford a yearly vacation, could afford to send their kids to college, could afford for one salary to support 4 people. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the $50 trillion of wealth that has been transferred from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. I'm talking about the fact that if you continue to vote for the people who prevail upon the system that perpetuates and maintains that, then you're a sucker. And if you vote for me, we're going to start over again. We're going to have a new chapter of American history, and we are going to stop the rigged economy by which a few get richer and richer, and everybody else is struggling to survive. That's what I can control.
You know, the bad news is if you win, you have to serve. You know that, right?
What do you mean?
Yeah,
I have to do
tough job.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's funny that you say that, because when people say to me, why do you want to be president? I always say want is not the right word. I don't think I trust anybody who said they want this. You're right. It's a burden beyond which you can even imagine.
Okay, on behalf of all my friends who read your book, A Course in Weight Loss, 21 Spiritual Lessons for Surrendering Your Weight Forever, they want to know what you think of Wegovy, the weight loss drug that you can inject.
Oh, I've heard some not good things. What's happening to people inside, like the one that was the insulin drug. At first, everybody was talking about it, and now they're saying it really can mess with you. I think there's a lot of warning about it now.
So you're not a fan?
From what I know. I just know what I've read, but from what I know, there's danger there and risk.
Thanks for your time, Marianne.
Okay, well,
Williamson.
thank
Great
you
to see
very
again.
much.
Good luck
Good luck
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Thank you.